Hei, terve Otto.
Terve Laura. We had a nice summer vacation here at the Spirit of Sauna podcast, where we talk about all kinds of phenomena surrounding sauna. We're not afraid to take on controversial topics and go our own way. But yeah, it's nice to be back from our summer vacation. It's been a couple of months, I guess, from the last episode.
Yeah, it's been a while at least. Yeah, but I think it's been a sort of very much needed break.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's very important just to have a break from something and see it in a whole new light and have new visions and ideas. And also, I think we have gained some courage to go more in depth and actually speak from our view.
Yes.
And not beat around the bushes.
yeah, but why do you think so? What has something happened?
Yeah, I think our journey to the Baltics, we went to Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, and the encounters there sort of, we had many international encounters and visitors from the UK, and it sort of emphasized, at least to me, that seriously, us Finns, we have something so unique to give to the sauna world that we should speak it out, and we should really proudly tell about the northern view for the sauna and sauna culture in general.
Yeah, indeed. Also here at the summertime, I took some time to call around and meet also these like sort of grand old men of the Finnish sort of, how would I say, sauna sort of establishment even. And those were really interesting discussions for sure. Like it's not every day that you can talk to someone who has been like doing sauna influencing for 40 years or something like that. Very like a wealth of knowledge. But also sort of solidified the fact that our perspective is quite different. And generations are changing now. I notice younger people are a lot more open to this, I would call it spiritual side of sauna.
Yeah.
So that we wouldn't be stuck in these old ideas. And I call them like already like quite old ideas of sort of... philosophically, we could speak about materialism or physicalism, so that we would be this cold, rational sort of way of approaching sauna, that only the law of löyly is important. And like we talked in our episode about the sauna in Finland. And definitely this trip we did with the sauna group to the Baltics was really a sort of an eye-opener to the current state of these sauna healing treatments in the Baltics. And I must say, I only took one of these. You went to several. There was good ones. There was some that were not so good ones. Like I enjoyed myself, but sort of didn't feel the connection, so to say, to the ritual. Which for me, it's the most important thing, is that I have a profound connection to the ritual itself. And of course, it has a lot to do with the experience, like how much experience the sauna healer has. It also has to do with the atmosphere, also with the company, all the practical arrangements, all of that kind of stuff. But in the end, I think it's something like whether the sauna healer is connected to his or her roots is the most important thing to me. And by roots, I mean sort of the unique characteristics of that particular region. Like that they would have some idea of the philosophy behind that. It doesn't have to be much, but some. And then that they would be like connecting themselves in numerous different ways to the roots of their own culture. I mean, cultural-wise, that they would, if they tell a folk tale from their area that is connected to the ritual that evening, if they use songs and poems to sort of orchestrate the next stage of the ritual. How are they as a person? Are they sort of professional in the sense that they don't like blab around stuff that is not that relevant? These kind of things, I think, are sort of what makes a really like, how would I say, like strong roots sauna healing.
Yeah, and sauna is so much about connecting with nature at large, you know, connecting to the greater nature. And much to do with that is that you sort of have your place in it. And it's also, this is a very spiritual idea, very like abstract or high flying, you know, phenomena, but then again it's also very, very practical. And especially in the sauna healing procedures and rituals, it's very practical. You know, what is around you is usually the best for you. The nature knows the best what is needed at that time, at that region, at that place. And I have found that many times those sauna practitioners, sauna healers who really do transformational work and the rituals that have guided me through a very strong healing process, they usually are also practically very connected to the nature around them. They use what is there, and they sort of harvest their strength and their also practical tools from the nature itself. And this also is, I feel, very much to the point what you were making, that you have strong connection to your roots. You know, it's the traditions that have been in that region, they usually have a reason to be there.
That's right.
So sort of really, you know, embracing that and being brave to just, you know, really let yourself to be supported by those traditions. We often have this idea that new is better, and we want to bring something new to the table, and we want to, you know, sort of mix with different types of ideas. And but I have found myself that actually very often simple, to the point, and connected to the roots. It's really there's the magic.
I just, it kind of reminded me of this kind of analogy. I never thought about this, so I'm not sure if this is gonna go well. But I've been sort of spending quite some time studying this survival sort of scene, like people who know how to go to the middle of the wilderness and just survive on basically nothing. And this sort of reminds me of like how, like if we're talking about the roots, how I prefer those. Like if I'm watching, like there's even a TV series about this called Alone, where people are sent to the like Alaskan wilderness with 10 items, and the longest, who's there for the longest survives, and you know gets a money prize. So it's interesting. I'm not a fan of reality TV, but this is awesome. And I notice I'm really drawn to these people who exactly has this, that they can just take something out of the ground. Like there was this one guy who was just laying in his bed for the most time and just eating whatever crawls like next to his hut. And even though he seems like a lazy guy, but I would say he's connected to his roots. He knows exactly what grows where, what can he utilize, how much calories he gets from all of these, and how he can survive by preserving calories. Or the other guy who's like a master hunter and knows exactly how to, like if there's a buffalo which weighs like 300 kilos, like, oh, what is it? Is it a buffalo? I'm not sure, but like a big animal. How can you, you know, if you need to eat that, what are the proceedings? How do you do it? And then you have this kind of like guys who are really into different kinds of like equipment, so that they're really trusting their trusted bow or their trusted sleeping bag or whatever, and they're talking, oh, I'm so happy I have this sleeping bag, or I'm so grateful for this bow of mine, and so on. And I'm really not so drawn into these sort of technical guys. Also with like outdoor scenes, like I'm the kind of guy who goes to the like a long hike just with old jeans and you know whatever, you know, trashy stuff that I found from some of them from the garbage bin when I was younger. You know, I didn't have any money, but I didn't want to go to outdoors. So maybe it's something similar. You know, that you know, when it comes to sauna healing, sauna treatments, it's like it's very, like the best ones know how to do it with very simple ingredients that you can find right on the spot. So you don't have to import like some eucalyptus things from Southeast Asia, or you don't need to use coconut oil or something like that. But you sort of, you're really connected. And this is like when we talk about roots, and for example, you dear American listeners, if you feel that your country is quite a young country, so your roots are not maybe that strong, still the roots are, it's possible to grow the roots to the geographical area where you live, and sort of base everything that you're doing on those roots that you find from there.
Yes, because the region, it reflects those basic principles of life that we are trying to mimic in the sauna ritual. We are trying to harmonize ourselves with that. So of course, nature around you is your first guide, first teacher to learn about these formulas, actually, like sort of formulas of life, or formulas of healing, or formulas of living healthy. And I find, yes, the forest, the nature around you, that is your first guide, and of course in the sauna it's sort of even more emphasized, because sauna is a very deadly environment. It's a high temperature. Anything you bring into the sauna or anything you do in the sauna is much more emphasized. Like you compare to doing same procedure outside or in the sauna. The effects are like hundreds of thousands of times how you receive them. So that's why it's very important that you don't start like unnecessary things are really unnecessary in the sauna. So you start with the core, you start with the essence, and you bring what is needed. And things are needed, no doubt. Like different types of vihtas, different types of plants. You can use a lot of natural products. You can use a lot of songs. You can use sound. A lot of things are needed, but not just for the sake of bringing a lot of experiences. Because I attended a sauna ritual which was like full of stuff, really full. Everything, beautiful vihta, beautiful things, so many ingredients brought, but it was just so much. It all got lost into the muchness.
Right. Yeah, this kind of reminds me, I come from the yoga background, so it sort of comes up. Like I just drove from Helsinki like very fast to get here before we have our evening ceremony to do this podcast, so maybe it's also like fresh in my mind. But it kind of reminds me of this sort of yoga culture. We all know that yoga also has this sort of very commercial reputation, that you have yoga festivals and, it's $1 billion industry. And you can notice that there's all kinds of equipment. You have different kinds of incense and, whatever, essential oils and, everything. And in yoga as well, I could call it my aesthetic preference, but it also like from like talking about the effects, I think the simpler the practice is, the more effective it is. I think actually that our mind is like our cognition is activated too much if you have a lot of stimuli in there. If you have something for your like vision, you hear something all the time, you smell something, you even feel something, maybe the teacher is touching you so often that you feel even the touch, you find it really hard to sort of let go and just experience what is coming. Too much like distractions, I think. So that's why I'm always like, for example, in Lithuania, in the Menuo Juoda Ragis festival where I was, we were all there, and there was this like free tent sauna for everyone, and there was this Lithuanian. Actually, he was an astrophysicist, which was really interesting. But he had a hobby of doing this sauna sort of ceremonies. Very simple, just really just basic elements of the sort of treating a group. And I truly enjoyed it. I went 3 rounds because he was doing endless rounds in there. And even Jonas, our sauna healer here, did 1 round. And I went, I think, 4 rounds of that ceremony. And I just wanted to do it again because it felt so sort of natural, I think. Naked in a very good way.
Just bare essentials. And this is why I believe that it's very important to have sort of basic understanding of these elements or the formulas behind nature, because it's difficult to sort of trust a process like a sauna ritual, you easily start thinking, oh, I have to add a little bit, and or the silence is too long, or I have to, I have to do a little bit more, be active now, and that is very often our own insecurities or our own ego speaking. We want to perform more, but to sort of be able to just to perform the basics, it really requires essential connection to the roots and also understanding of what you're doing. And usually this basic, like I like the idea of the elements as a basis of a sauna ritual, because it's very simple and practical understanding. There are many types of ways you can start practicing sauna healing, but this sort of elemental how do you say sort of foundation is very practical, and it's also very applicable in different you can always adjust it, because it's like one of the very basic formulas that nature uses to give us sort of a sense of something happening.
Well, I right away want to ask more. Like you're talking about elements.
Yes.
What do you actually refer to? Like we know that in ancient traditions they love the idea of elements. We also think about basic elements nowadays in the sort of physical world. What are you actually referring to?
Yeah, I think one of our episodes we mentioned the idea that almost any culture that has some healing traditions, they have this concept of either 4 or 5 or elements. And I think they go by a little bit different names, but basic idea is that there is this 4, which is actually 5 fundamental patterns that sort of play together to give life. And I think the most familiar maybe is this concept, and at least which works very well in the sauna, is this idea that you have the earth, you have the air, you have the fire, and you have water, and then you have the 5th element. And of course in the löyly in the sauna context you can talk about löyly, which is sort of the beginning of sauna and the end product of the sauna procedure. So that these are the elements that I'm referring to when I'm mentioning about this basic formula.
Yeah, it's indeed the case that most ancient cultures recognized these elements, and it is quite a long story of how to explain what they actually meant.
You have to go to sacred geometry and all this mathematical, very deep discussions.
Yeah, exactly, and that's actually a sort of a mistake we always make, is that these ancient people were really stupid, like that they lacked some kind of cognitive abilities that we nowadays have, which is, I think it's actually the opposite. They were very like level-headed people, and the element theory is, it's not even a theory; it's an observation from their point of view of how nature organizes itself around some of these basic elements. But the most important thing about that, if we look at some Greek texts, say Plato or Aristotle, or we look at South Asia, we look at some maybe tantric texts, which used to make very long commentaries on this observation of elements. It might feel quite theoretical, because we look at the world so differently. For us, it doesn't really make sense that these kind of very basic things, or even hard to define things from our perspective, with our language, could be the basis of everything or anything actually. But you often say that sauna is the place where you get sort of the concreteness of these elements. What do you actually mean about with this idea?
Well, it actually works in many levels. But if we start with the very basic, because sauna is sort of the sanctuary or the temple of the elements. It is. I feel that it's our ancestors have been so amazing. They have really they have sort of passed on to us a practice which is sort of you every time you have a sauna bathing, you sort of you it's a ritual of the elements. And okay, there is the first, of course, you have to have the fire going. The air is needed when you're heating a sauna with wood. You know, you really realize that if the air pressure is down and there's not enough ventilation for your fire, you know, fire just doesn't. You need that air movement for fire to spark and start burning. And then, of course, the fire is there, and you're looking for nice, soft, moist heat, but you cannot pour water directly to the fire, so you have the earth, the rocks of the sauna stove, which collect the fire's heat. And then when you pour the water, which is very physical element there, you pour it on those hot rocks, the earth that has been heated with this fire of life, and there löyly appears. So this, I feel, is like a very practical process, and this you get to really, you know, sort of sing the song of the elements every time when you're heating the sauna and then you're bathing in that sauna. So very, very practical. Yeah,
indeed. It's kind of like it's the cooking process, like of everything, of life itself. Sort of, if we're cooking something, you know, you have a recipe and you need to add certain kind of elements to make it happen. But also the way you apply these elements is important, because these basic elements are there pretty much anytime you heat up a sauna with wood. Sure, you need these, but it's also a very special sort of, I'm reminded of our sauna, which is, I think it's also a masterpiece of engineering, because this Saunat, who makes this kind of underground smoke saunas, they have really put a lot of thought in how to produce the perfect steam, perfect löyly in that sauna. And for example, that how the air is circulating there from the bottom when we're heating it up, it's really important. So you need these two sort of two tiny holes, or quite small holes, to get just enough air, but not too much. You also don't want to have too much air, because then you're cooling the fire down. So it's kind of like if you're making a lasagna and you want to make the white sauce, then you need just enough of flour, but not too much, you know, and you need to like stir it in just in the right way so that it won't get clumpy and all of this. It's kind of similar. But now we're talking about how, like, for example, in South Asia, their argument was that this is how a human being is being formed. It's a sort of allegorical way of talking about what kind of elements are needed for life to emerge. And löyly is such a perfect sort of metaphor for life or soul, also because of this. So if we look at the ancient word of löyly, and it's one of the oldest words in the Proto-Fenno-Ugric language, which goes all the way back to 8,000 or 9,000 years. And this Proto-Fenno-Ugric levle, and all of these derivatives, most of the Fenno-Ugrian languages have some kind of word for löyly. It really translates to breath, you know, the breath of life. You know, even if you're outside in the winter and you're breathing and you see the air coming out, the ancients could have called that löyly. So what is that steam coming out of the rocks? It's life itself. So this is actually, now I think we come to the perfect point of how, like, what we're doing here diverges from many sauna cultures nowadays. Because nowadays löyly is, like, if you look at the dictionary, they say you pour water and you get this water vapor, and that's the löyly. Yeah, sure, you can say that, of course. It's the same way of saying, you know, how is a human formed? You know, it's the sperm cell goes to the egg, and, you know, that's how a human being is formed. Sure, but the ancients didn't think it like this. They had a very different way of approaching these kinds of sort of even miracles, because how life forms, it is a miraculous thing. But they would want to make it so that we're not separated from everything else which creates life. So the same basic elements need to be in balance, whether it's a tree, a human, an animal, or even a galaxy. That's the crazy part, because they really don't limit life to this earth that we have. They see the whole cosmos as a living thing. And I think this is the point where most people are like, I'm dropping out right now. Like, this is too much, like too sweeping to say that everything is living. But from everything I've gathered, especially from the South Asian wisdom traditions, but also the Greek and the Finnish, I would say that they wouldn't limit this to any particular planet. They would talk about the whole cosmos and us humans as part of it.
Yeah.
But as you're running, like today in some half an hour, you're starting a ceremony here at the sauna, and you have a ritual and you have a sort of a way of going about things that you prepare it in some way, then you lead the ceremony, and then after the ceremony also there's some time and some certain kinds of things you do. So when you're thinking about these elements, how in practice do these elements show themselves in your ritual work?
Yeah, because, well, you were nicely talking about this living, breathing cosmos. And I think that is the basic foundation idea when you're performing a sauna ritual or guiding a sauna ceremony. You are sort of reflecting this breath of cosmos or breath of nature. And what we were talking about, you really want to tie it to the region you're in, but also you want to tie it to the season. And I think this elemental formula behind this sort of sauna healing work is very well reflected when we are thinking about our concept of time or seasons. For example, our yearly cycle is a very good sort of practical example of how these elements are really basics of life. This cosmos repeats the same pattern in small and bigger form, microcosmos and macrocosmos. The seasons are the same elemental dance or elemental song that we do in our sauna ritual, or what I was describing of how in the sauna the sauna stove and the löyly comes from there. The same sort of pattern is seen for example in the seasons. You have the winter rest, your sort of heavy earthy season where everything is sort of stagnant, and then there starts spring, everything starts moving and flowing and sort of preparing for the season of fire. And summer is really, this is at least the Finnish seasons, the summer is really full of this fire of life, and we are actually full of our even sauna rituals are full of this fire the sort of fire force or fire of life in us. We are really
energetic,
we're getting it going, and then comes autumn and everything starts getting wet and slowing and getting dark, and the harvest season is here, and now we're living in it, and sort of it flows us back to the ocean of where everything begins, and we find ourselves like a bear in its nest underground and back to the earth, and so it goes again and again. And this is sort of the breath of life that keeps us going from one year to another. And this sort of formula then you repeat in the sauna ritual when you're doing the healing ritual, because what you want to do for the person coming for the healing treatment, you want to take them through this formula. And sort of by taking them through it, giving them the chance to sort of travel that path, you are sort of you're, how would I say, bring them back to the roots of it. What is the root of life? So you are sort of connecting that person. Maybe he has been a little bit imbalanced, maybe a little bit too much, everything going, too much fire in his system, and everything is in flames. And when you take him through that whole cycle, he can find his balance. Okay, fire is supposed to be this much here, but then I calm down and I go for the rest mode. And sort of it restates that sort of natural harmony of this cycle.
This is exactly the idea that that it sort of runs contrary to a lot of these maybe even more modern spiritual cultures, where you think that, for example, that you could think, I think, that sauna healing is about sort of cleansing or detoxing or purifying or something like this. Well, why not? But on the other hand, like psychologically, I really don't like that much, because it sort of implies that we're dirty. So something needs to be washed out from our dirty self.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I would think exactly like this, that the elements sort of reveal themselves in lack of it or too much of it.
Yeah.
So, for example, fire is an element that we tend to have too much.
Yeah.
It sort of, our digestion is running too high or too low. Sometimes might be stagnated and you feel like really earthy, and it's too much of fire or earth, or too much wind could be like that you're restless and so on. So there could be this sort of mood archetypes also that we could recognize in ourselves. But diagnosing oneself is like this is not useful really. And this word that you used, cycle or cyclical, is really important with this, because the cosmos goes in a cycle anyway. Like, it's just about us whether we want to go like in tune with how the earth is rotating, how the day is flowing, and all of the phenomena in the nature. So yeah, this is how I think a ritual in general, whether it's in sauna or whether it's even like I'm thinking something like Egyptian, these sort of ceremonial pathways where you transfer the boat from one temple to the next. Also in here, there's this cyclical idea that every year for hundreds of years or thousands of years, you do certain kinds of rituals to synchronize your whole being with how this world operates. So this is, I think this is the connection, sort of the missing piece of the connection that we have trouble understanding as modern people, because we don't really have that much of these synchronizing ways of treating ourselves. Of course, some, we brush our teeth in the morning and in the evening and so on. There's some very quite mundane sort of healthy habits that have a cyclical nature. But something that is truly thought out, truly and repeated so many times that even the sort of ritual, the sauna healer or the ritual master sort of loses him or herself in the process, because they've done it so many hundreds or thousands of times that they don't even feel that they're there. They're sort of speaking with a larger voice in a sense. And I think this is also one key, that we don't need to think about it too much. Like something like this episode, what we talked about here, maybe that's sort of enough, actually. That that, yes, there's elements. Yes, these elements affect us in a sense. They're a great metaphor. And yes, this ritual is sort of constructed with these elements in mind. And then just let go and enjoy the process.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't encourage the practice of doing this sort of that, oh, now I'm doing this for this element and now I'm doing this for this element. But like, for example, our own self, we have the senses that reflect these elements. So you can just sort of when you're sauna healer or you're performing the ritual for yourself or this beforehand, you can always think that, I have this, for example, that this is how I engage all the senses, and sort of you have the elemental practice there. But then, of course, yes, when you are there, then you should be there and leave all the analyzing behind. It's a very important part of nature. Is not about analyzing, it's more about the intuition and sort of letting go, because I think these elements, they are important to understand, but understanding doesn't help anybody. You have to experience it.
Right, yeah. Talking about experience.
I think it's time to go to experience.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a good introduction to this topic. I think we're gonna do another episode about sort of where we could actually go through some of the models that we have from ancient world, which are more explicit about this, and then also maybe sort of open one element at a time to sort of go through and what all of the associations that is attached to it.
There is so much mythology. There is so much. It's just a deep practice. So yeah, this was just a very small introduction, like as if we were in a party and we just said, okay, this is called this and this is called this.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a lot of work to be done so that before we know each other.
Indeed. And just to remind our dear listeners, our sauna healing training is coming up. Yeah. The first weekend is already in a couple of months. So saunahealer.com is the place to go and check out more. And you can always ask if you have any questions from us. And if you liked this episode, of course, just subscribe, talk to your friends, talk to your family, share it. We would love to have all of you guys who are interested in this and contact with you as well. And thank you again for the lovely comments in YouTube. I love it that you like it. It really means a lot to us and makes it worthwhile. So thank you all.
Kiitos.
And kiitos Laura, and have a great ceremony.